You are listening to the Enormocast.
I guess I tacitly endorse all the products I pitch from Black Diamond. I'm happy to do it. I use everything I spray about on the show. But today, I'm here to beg you, for your own good, to check out the Pipe Dream Pack from Black Diamond. You know, the one that folds out into a pad? I know, it seems like too much. It looks weird on your back, like some sort of pad-sniffing tween. But please believe me, the first time you are luxuriating on the pad while your bros wallow in the fecal dust at the base of any modern crag, you will thank me, I guarantee it. But Caloose, you say, you don't do gear reviews. This is not a gear review, it's a throated endorsement. I'm literally sad that so many people don't understand how great this pack is, how perfect it is for cragging and sport climbing, how your day improves threefold when your butt hits the pad, you lay back and sigh thinking, I am so fucking dialed right now. So that's it. No clever sound effects, no rhymey finish, no obscure pop culture reference. Just be kind to your butt and check out the Pipe Dream at blackdiamondequipment.com. You will thank me later.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
big
big
house. We
place
sold it
outside
out.
of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold it out.
20,000 seats. We really should.
Look, you better get up there before you panic. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Caloose. It is April 28th, 2019, about 11 o'clock in the morning here in Colorado, and this is episode 174 of the Enormocast, a conversation with British climber Jacob Cook and Canadian climber Bronwyn Hodgins. But since they are married and they live in Canada, maybe Jacob is an honorary Canadian. You Canadians will have to decide on that. I think he'd be a nice addition to America's hat, though. You guys should think about it. But business time here at the Enormocast. I've been forgetting to do this, which is a shame, but I've been wanting to endorse Luke Mihal's new book, The Desert. You know Luke Mihal from the Climbing Zine, from an old Enormocast episode now. But yeah, Luke's self-published a new book called The Desert, a self-proclaimed dirtbag climbing book, and it's about his ramblings in the desert, searching for love, fresh air, first ascents, freedom. Yeah, so I'd love you guys to check it out. If you believe in independent media that does not require the blessing of the gatekeepers of the climbing industry, well, check out what Luke Mihal does down at the Climbing Zine with his new book, The Desert, and also subscribe to the Climbing Zine. Again, that's climbingzine.com. Okay, on to this interview. Have you heard of Jacob Cook and Bronwyn Hodgins? Maybe not. But this is a dynamic couple. They happen to be married, been together for a while, and just a really, really fun conversation with a couple of people who love climbing, love adventure, don't take themselves too seriously, but at the same time, get it done, and are very accomplished climbers, but really more in the true adventurer camp. They find ways to spice it up with whitewater, inflatable sharks, all kinds of stuff. We laughed a lot recording this, and I laughed a lot listening to it again in edit. So that's always a good sign. I think you guys are going to dig it and just make you feel good about climbing and about getting out there and trying crazy stuff. Okay, here's a conversation with Bron and Jacob. Sportiva pretty much invented the downturned shoe with the introduction of the Testarossa ages ago. Too radical, cried the olds. That looks like it hurts, cried the fearful. Ooh, me likey, whispered a prepubescent Jonathan Segrist. And guess who went on to set the climbing world on fire in his testes? Hint, it wasn't Grandpa Flatfoot waving his hexes around and mumbling gear beta at a stump. And soon every company followed suit and steep climbs opened up to the masses. Now Sportiva took the venerable Testarossa and under the direction of some of the best climbers in the world, did a redesign. The new Testarossa sports better heel hooking security and the famous P3 tech to help retain that downturn fit. So check out how the Radical just got more radicaler at Sportiva.com or your favorite local shop. Sportiva is a proud sponsor of the Enormocast.
How long ago did we meet down here? It's like, when was that trip for you guys?
Yeah, it was 4 years ago. Spring 2015.
This, right now.
This time, 2015.
Right.
And that was my first time learning how to hand jam.
Okay.
Yeah, both of us.
I showed up.
Both of us learned how.
Yeah, I didn't know what a hand jam was. Well, I knew what it was supposed to look like.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to do one.
Right. And you quickly picked it up, though.
Well, we spent 5 weeks in the creek that season, learning.
We just basically spent a week on each side.
Mm-hmm.
So we would do hands for a week, and then thin hands for another week,
and then wide hands for another week.
And that's pretty methodical.
Yeah. It was methodical for sure.
Well, I think it also had to do with we just had pretty limited cam, so we were just the two of us, and we didn't know anyone else, and so it really was like wandering around the campsite saying we want to climb this exact cam size today.
Can we trade
then we
all
would
our
collect
cams for red Camelots, please? And
so it was a little bit, we had to be methodical a bit.
Right. About which climbs. Did you ever get in trouble then? Like you got up on something that you didn't have the right rack for?
Oh, man. Yeah. Keyhole flakes. That was like a 5'10" off-width and super crack. And there's a photo of me just like starfished against that thing.
Like trying not to jam it or something?
Just taking.
Yeah, I'm sitting on a cam, but the cam's like really deep in the crack, so it just looks like starfish.
But yeah.
And that was like a big Western road trip, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Ontario, so we were driving from Ontario to Yosemite through.
Right. Yeah, that was like our first time exploring a bunch of the climbing in the US. And we came down here and we met up with Alan Kahn and we went climbing for a day with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was... And where do we go to...
Sacred Cow. I made a movie of Alan on Sacred Cow.
Oh, that's right.
I got up on a rope and was filming Alan laybacking Sacred Cow.
Yeah.
And you can watch that.
I remember that all now. I guess that was the only day we hung out, huh?
Right, yeah.
And then
no, we went to Sparkswell a different day. No, we definitely... We went with you and Alan to Sparkswell as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least 2 days.
Right. So, yeah, because I'm probably still working on that little...
Zebras and moonbeams.
Yeah.
I climbed that thing later.
Right on.
I went back a couple of years later because I remember seeing you. I think I watched you make the first ascent of that route.
Well, I didn't...
No.
I didn't make the first ascent but it might have been when I actually...
Right. I think I watched you climb it.
Okay, cool.
I was there. I don't know. Yeah, and then we went back a while later.
Either that or you watched me throw a fit.
Yeah.
Those are the two at that point, those were the two different outcomes.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's so short and it's like, it just shuts you down. So if you don't do it, you basically know in like 40 seconds whether or not you're going to do it.
Well, the crux is like pulling off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like I would throw these massive... because it's just like so much energy output in just like such a short amount of time. And I just throw these massive fits. So anyway, but then I finally did it. But I was actually the third ascent of it, even though I put the anchors on it.
I'm so sorry.
Well, that's all right. I'll climb with buddies like Pee Wee and then Joseba.
Right.
Did you guys ever meet that cat?
I don't think
from
so.
Spain?
I don't know.
Six crack climber.
I think
I'm sure
is
you've
that
met
the guy
him
we
somewhere.
met in Aliana? Maybe. I might know this man.
Okay. Yeah, he's kind of
Saber, if you're out there,
everywhere
I don't
all the time
remember you.
sort of climber guy. Anyway, but so you guys were going out to Yosemite together as a couple. You are now married.
That's right.
Right? Not too long ago?
In September.
Okay, September.
Well, we got married twice last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we got married the first time.
So that should all work out.
So we got married the first time in the eyes of the Canadian government.
Okay.
So that I could become a permanent resident.
Right.
And then we got married for real in September.
Where we had a party with all our relatives and friends and things.
Okay. So some paperwork and then an actual nuptial sort of thing.
Yeah. Something like that.
Cool. And then how did you guys meet?
So I was studying for my PhD at Leeds University in England in 2012. and I guess Bron did a year of exchange.
Yeah, I came over to England to study for a year during my undergrad, and then I ended up being at the same university that Jacob was studying at. But then I didn't climb before that, so I wasn't a climber. And then I didn't have any friends in England because I just arrived in this country, and I was just the first week. I remember looking at various different clubs to join to find some friends, and I thought the climbing club looked cool.
Yep.
Right, so you'd never climbed, but you were like, this looks kind of fun.
Yeah, Bron didn't know that climbing was a thing.
I didn't actually know it. So I grew up in a family that did a lot of hiking, a lot of canoeing, whitewater canoeing, some biking, skiing, but I'd never heard of rock climbing. Like, it just wasn't really, it didn't exist in the area of Ontario where I grew up. So then I went to England and I saw this cool new outdoor sport I'd never heard of. And signed up, and I met Jacob 2 weeks later as part of that club.
Yeah.
Right, so tell me about
any of Bronwyn's achievements are down to coaching, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Except I decided
so I
to
met
do...
her like 2 weeks after she learned how to tie a figure of 8. Yeah.
Except I decided to go climbing before I met Jacob, so he didn't push me into it.
Okay.
Is
this
good
to be the way this podcast goes? No, that's not how it happened.
No! It wasn't like that!
But tell me about this. I read an article. What is sock wrestling? Am I like...
Oh, right.
You guys talk about it as if everyone should know what it is.
Right, so sock wrestling is you have two people suspended from harnesses, hanging from the roof, and they're like roughly arm's length apart.
Okay.
And they're both wearing one sock, and then you pull them apart in opposite directions and swing them into each other so they kind of collide, and then the game is to get the sock off the other person's foot.
Okay.
Before they get the sock, without them getting the sock.
So you're kind of suspended wrestling in the air.
Yeah. It's a great
around,
game. I'm amazed you haven't played it, Chris.
I know
you need good rafters to hang the people from.
Yeah,
right.
It's good in castles because that's what we hang out in castles a lot in the UK.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm glad you cleared that up because I actually couldn't visualize it from your description, and that's the reason I bring that up. Is that's how you guys first had contact.
Yeah, I don't think we actually sock wrestled each other.
Oh, okay.
But we were both participating in it.
I think Jacob was the person...
Because it seemed a little unfair.
Well, Jacob was the person who was swinging me into my sock wrestle match against another girl. I think.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was not co-ed sock wrestling.
Oh, yeah,
no, it would have been, but that particular match...
All right.
I remember I was
good. So it's very, very woke sock wrestling.
Oh, yeah. Leeds University Climbing Club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Leeds. That's cool, and that's a famous. That's a pretty famous math place, right?
Right. Yeah. So I was studying for my PhD in math. I still am maths.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
You guys
I'm
do
fluent.
maths.
I'm fluent. Math.
Okay,
whatever you want. Mathematics.
Right.
So I was studying for my PhD in math, and I still am really, really psyched about math. Yeah.
And how do you fit? This is going to go off on a little tangent, but how do you?
That's okay.
How do you fit this like math stoke, if you want to call it that, into the climbing stoke, the climbing lifestyle?
Well, with difficulty.
Yeah.
I mean, over the course of my PhD, I kind of realized that maybe I would rather be being a climbing bum than being a mathematician, and so it was kind of challenging to kind of manage doing the PhD at the same time. But luckily, my supervisor was really okay with me just kind of riding it from the road. So I was like pretty much on full-time climbing trips, like in Spain, and came over to Yosemite and was hanging out with Bronwyn in Canada a bit and just writing my PhD from wherever I was. And so that actually worked out really well because I had funding from the UK government to do the PhD, so I was kind of able to climb full-time as long as I spent my rest days kind of doing math. And then when I finished that, I was kind of like, I'm over math for now. Like, doing a PhD is quite a painful experience. It was challenging. And so once I finished that, I was like, I'm kind of done with math for a while now. And then, just recently in the last couple of years, I kind of got back into it. And I've got this job teaching math up at the small university in Squamish.
Okay.
Which has been really fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's really nice to now be able to kind of dip back into math a little bit. And yeah.
So you guys were on the road. He's trying to finish his PhD kind of thing, or were you living in Squamish? What did it look like?
All over the place.
Yeah.
I guess we had the year together when we were both in Leeds, and then I still had another year to finish my degree in Canada. So Jacob came over and did a lot of his PhD there. And as soon as I graduated, that was when we first went to Yosemite. It was right after I graduated. And then the next year... Yeah. I mean, we can talk a bit about our first time in Yosemite. There's kind of some funny stories.
Well, yeah, let's... but I want to ask you, what did you get your degree in?
Oh, civil engineering.
Okay.
That's what I studied. I haven't done anything to do with that since.
That's fine. But I'm just curious because, how this all sort of fits together. It's just it does sound pretty intense to try to manage that kind of level of thinking, scattered on the road. I mean,
your papers are all over the van. And
I just have this vision, almost like it'd be like a movie, with papers.
Yeah, but the way that it was, I was basically just stuck with the same problem for 18 months.
Jesus.
And I would just try to solve it in a way that I thought was new, and then I would just find myself back at the same point, and so it was kind of quite frustrating. But I was basically stuck with the same problem for 18 months, and I finally solved it. And then basically once I solved it, I locked myself in my room at my dad's house for 6 weeks and just wrote the thing.
Okay.
So it's kind of two stages. There was the scattered problem solving on the road stage, and then the 6 weeks of being locked, actually writing up stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Without blowing our minds completely.
I can give you my spiel.
Can you? What's your elevator pitch of what
so my PhD is in infinity.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you want, you can call me Dr. Infinity.
Okay.
It's kind of like a Bond.
Your X-Men name,
you don't have to, but you can. So.
What's your nickname then, Ron?
I'm gonna have to come up with one now. It won't be as good as that though.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, think about it.
Yeah.
As long as it's nothing to do with sidekick, because this is I'm not the sidekick.
Okay. So when you were a kid and you get involved in a game with your friend where you're trying to say a bigger number. And so you're like, no, I've got 10. And then they're like, no, I got 20, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, a bajillion, a Google. And then eventually one of you goes, well, infinity.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, well, infinity plus 1, infinity plus 2. And then infinity plus infinity, infinity times infinity. Anyway, my PhD is that game. So trying to make bigger and bigger kinds of infinity than other mathematicians. So I'm really, really good at that game.
Right on.
Yeah, so you shouldn't try and say a bigger infinity.
Okay, I'm not going to... I'm good.
So, not going to try.
Do it.
No, I said I'm not going to... We're not going to try.
As a bazillion more or less than infinity?
A lot less. 0%.
Right, okay.
Yeah, 0%.
All right.
Nothing.
So... when I got to stick on the math thing for just one more second.
Okay.
I know this is a climbing podcast. Whatever. Everybody's used to it. But, and I know this is probably going to make you want to punch me in the eye. But what is the application?
Absolutely no.
No, okay.
No, it's completely useless.
Theoretical.
Yeah. But it's
math.
really, really interesting.
Right.
And it's kind of the area that I'm interested in is kind of on the borderline of math and philosophy. So it's kind of about the limits of... what I'm doing is mathematics, but it has some applications about the limits of human knowledge, or what we can hope to know, what problems we can hope to solve.
Right.
And maybe there's some questions that we're just fundamentally unable to answer. And they can be quite precise mathematical questions.
Sure.
Which I don't know, I think is really cool.
Well, I think I've always thought that one of the big problems with human existence, or at least how we think about our place in the world, is that we actually, as human beings, don't really understand big numbers.
Right.
We don't understand even though it's thrown around all the time in the news.
A million versus a billion.
Yeah.
You don't have any...
Right. How much money is $1 billion?
Versus $1 million. Yeah, it's
Or how many people is $1 billion? Or a years in the planet. All those numbers, they just don't... We kind of can't hold them in our heads. And the same thing with infinity. It's very, very hard to pin down and hold in your mind. Because the other game was looking at space and being okay, well, if space goes on forever. Well, where does it end? And if it doesn't end, then, that whole thing of like what's behind it.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, all right. We're going to go back to climbing. There's got to be a math podcast out there that's waiting for you to join them. But I want to also bring Bron back into the conversation. So you guys go to Yosemite as fledgling crack climbers, right? Because you were here first.
No, this was the year before. So we went. The first trip to Yosemite was before we knew how to hand jam. So yeah, that was our like first time when we just showed up and thought it'd be cool to try and climb some big walls, and we were like total gumbies. So basically, Bron had been doing her final exams for her degree, and I'd like watched some videos on YouTube of like how to do this stuff, how to haul a bag and Jumar and stuff, and then we kind of just showed up and.
As like lots of people probably do.
Right, and we epicked, as lots of people probably do.
Yeah, so we went to try Washington Column, like the south face of Washington Column, which I guess is probably a lot of people in Yosemite's first attempt at a big wall. It's only 11 pitches, I think. It took us 4 days to climb the 11 pitches.
Right on.
So that's like kind of our progress. Yeah, I mean, that's really slow.
Yeah,
physically.
we got in some real tangles.
How long had you guys been dating at that point? Or like together, however you want to put it.
A year and a half.
It's a weird word, dating.
Yeah, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a good test. It's a good test of a relationship. To go up on these walls and just like epic together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a good time?
Yeah. I mean, my
Good
whole
here.
kind of like progression into climbing was, I guess we skipped this a little bit, but I basically spent a year following Jacob up a bunch of kind of multi-pitches around England and then also Spain and France for that first year of my climbing.
So my strategy for kind of courting Bronwyn was that I realized very early on that she liked being really, really tired and really, really scared. So I just took her on as extreme multi-pitches as I possibly could around Spain.
So we ended up, like, I think 5 months after I learned how to tie a figure eight, we went up Fiesta de los Biceps in Riglo. So it's like a super steep, overhanging 9-pitch sport route. I don't remember.
Yeah, and the top sort of 3 pitches are like, it feels like 45-degree overhung, and it's kind of like the only route. You're in the gym, climbing in the gym, and there's these like huge jug routes that are like 5'9", and you're like, oh, this would never happen outside. Like the really steep 5'9s in the gym. That route is the only time that does happen.
Just like this, steep roof with huge jugs the whole time.
Yeah, but you run out of gas.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, so that's the point. I ran out of gas.
And when you fall off, you're like just spinning like a piñata out in space.
So Bron just like couldn't do a pull up anymore and was just.
I probably couldn't do a pull up to start with.
Right. It was just like dangling there and like
swinging, taking a big fall, swinging again, like falling off again. So this also took us about, I think, 11 hours or something. Like, it was all day, this like huge epic adventure.
And the thing with that place with Riglos is that the refugio is right underneath the climbs. So I guess all the other climbers had been sitting in the refugio watching this show go
getting
down.
Drunk.
Yeah, watching Bronwyn just like swinging. And then I guess we came back that evening and I couldn't figure out why everyone was just giving me evils. And like I couldn't figure out why they were evil looks. So they were being like really, really friendly to Bronwyn and just super mean.
So
to
we
me.
just asked, and they like basically thought that Jacob had been this like horrible boyfriend and like dragged this girl who was having a horrible time.
Right, because it looked like Bronwyn was having like the worst time of her life, which was not the case.
I was like, that was amazing. I like had the best time ever.
So now first of all, this strategy of yours,
right?
We are not recommending that strategy. Because normally that shit never works.
Right, yeah.
Never. It's like, that's, So.
We did a bunch of like bridge swings and cliff jumps and like
that could work, but like the tired and scared, I don't know. But
suffering together. In this case, did work.
Yeah, it did work. And so this like the Riglos climb, or the Fiesta de la Biceps, comes up elsewhere that I read. Is this like, was this a moment for you to be like, this chick's rad? Like, I think she's like, getting completely annihilated and loving it.
Right. Yeah. It was unusual, and it definitely made me like more interested. Because I guess that doesn't. Yeah, you're right. That doesn't normally happen.
I mean, either way, guy or girl.
Right.
Either way, like,
right.
Getting.
And I think that we just also over the years, it's gone from me like taking Bronwyn up climbs to like just the two of us climbing together. But like in both cases, we were kind of like suffering together, and like we definitely like thrive off of that kind of environment, and it definitely like meant that we kind of bonded quicker early on. Like that trip we climbed the nose together too, like in Yosemite, and I guess Bron had learned how to tie a figure of 8 like 18 months before, and I climbed the nose, which I guess is testament to like her ability to suffer.
So what do you think, Bron? Like what are we talking about? Where did that come from, do you think?
No, I guess the main like outdoor sport, I guess my family, I did a lot of canoe tripping on like long canoe trips. So like by the time I was 13, I was going on 20-day overnight camping canoe trips.
Right.
To when I was 17, I went on a 50-day exploratory whitewater river trip in the Yukon.
Okay.
And then those are generally like quite a lot of suffering as well.
Totally.
In like a more like drawn out way. Like there a lot of times, you're working all day to move this along this section of ground or river, portaging, paddling. You're in the rain, it's cold.
Bugs.
Yeah, a lot of bugs. Various things. Everyone has to work like as a team to make the distance, or else you fall way behind. And then
it's kind of similar to being on a big wall, I guess, in that like you don't have an out. Like you have to keep doing things. You don't have an option to just be like, no, I'm tired now. I don't feel like doing this anymore.
Yeah,
it's similar in that sense.
And then once you finish, you like feel like a sense of like huge sense of accomplishment because you've suffered through being able all the hard parts, like all the easy parts when it's sunny and the rapids of the whitewater are really fun.
Right. Did you
parts,
take to it right away, or did you have to? I mean, because the reason I asked that is, as a little kid, like I hated camping and back I lived it
always.
And it's like, and then later on in my teens, I got back into it.
No, I was the kid like begging my parents, like I was going every single summer to do this, and like I was, no.
But the other thing is, you did a whole, like you were a competitive runner, right?
Oh yeah, I also had a phase of being a quite competitive, like cross country and long distance runner, middle distance, I guess. So I ran on the varsity team at university for that. Which basically is just suffering without the fun, really. I mean, you just kind of run and then you get like exhausted and then you have to push harder until you feel like you're going to throw up and then the race is over. So I don't really like running anymore. But that was a big part of my life.
So what happened with climbing? Like, why do you think it like grabbed you? And, because the thing is I was a backpacker. I canoed actually, so I know about portaging and all that stuff.
We say portaging in Canada.
I know, but I'm not Canadian. So portage. So and then I got into climbing and like just basically. All that other stuff just fell away.
Yeah. I mean, so I kept the canoeing.
Yeah.
The canoeing's always been. I mean, I guided for 7 seasons after that.
Okay.
That's always been around. But definitely, in terms of when climbing arrived in my life compared to running, I think I probably should have quit running about a year earlier. Like I was kind of not enjoying it anymore, and not enjoying the training, not enjoying the racing, but kind of just doing it because I had always done that and I'd worked up to that there was a lot of pressure on myself to like keep doing it and keep doing well at it. And then so when climbing, suddenly I tried this new thing out and it was so much more fun than running. Like the two overlapped for 2 months. I was like, okay, running out the window, not doing that ever again, and like full tilt climbing.
But I do think the thing that made you good at running is also the thing that makes you good at climbing. It's like this kind of
being willing to try
this kind of try hard, like fight to the death kind of like mentality that I think is like key to climbing quite well. Is also like key to running quite well.
Mm-hmm. For certain types of climbing, yeah.
For sure, yeah.
And what you guys? It seems to be big adventure climbing is the thing.
We do a lot of sport climbing too. We take breaks. And go.
But
that's the main. That's the fun main part.
The thing that the routes that keep me awake, like at night, are big routes. Yeah, like massive cliffs where you're like, oh yeah, I want to go up there.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoy the movement of climbing and sport climbing and the physical aspect of it and the like progression side of things. But really, it's the adventure climbs that I think are the main draw.
And what's your origin with climbing itself before you were in the
very different
in the climbing club?
So I guess my dad took me to the climbing gym when I was 7 in London. I'm from like central London, and I started in the kids club, and by the time I was kind of like 10, I guess I was doing like a bunch of competitions and was quite serious, and I ended up doing some European competitions and some national ones. But by the time I was 13, I kind of burned out on it. And I think that one of the things that's happening now is I think kids are getting a lot more kind of mental coaching, or there's much more of an understanding of that side of things. But yeah, so I was kind of like a burnout comp kid. And so by the time I was 13, I was just like, I'm done with this. I want to do something else. And so I just kind of took up skateboarding and quit for sort of 6-7 years. And then when I was 20, I kind of got back into it for a bunch of different reasons and kind of started outside climbing and trad climbing. And that year of getting back into it when I was 20 was so fun because I had all of the movement technique from when I was younger, and I guess a bunch of like residual tendon strength and stuff. But I like had no upper body strength at all. Like I couldn't even do a pull-up. But it just meant that I had like this crazy progression for a year where like every weekend I was like climbing better than the weekend before, and then since then it kind of like just took over again.
What was the reason for finding it again, do you think?
I moved to Oxford in England, which is kind of like the worst place in the UK for rock climbing. Like if you were to draw a map of all the points where you can go rock climbing in the UK and then find the point that's the furthest away from any of them, that would probably be Oxford. But for some reason, I went there to do my master's, and then for some reason just made friends with a bunch of people in the climbing club, and they seemed to be going climbing every weekend, so I just went along and sort of learned how to trad climb.
Right. And
that year of learning how to trad climb, also looking back on it, I was quite lucky to survive.
Right.
I had all these memories of like all my gear falling out, but I did survive, and then I did figure out how to do it.
So let's talk about sort of your guys' style. We just got into it, how you like doing big routes,
right?
And sort of adventure, and then also like chucking a little bit of goofiness around into it, like inflatable sharks and and things like that. Can you tell me like a little bit about the first time that you two had like a major like success together as far as like a big adventure route?
I guess the first would be like climbing the nose was the first time that we kind of actually successfully did all of the big wall shenanigans.
Yeah.
And then I guess a year later we climbed Freerider, and that was the time we climbed, we hauled this inflatable shark along. And so I'm definitely, it's really important for me to have fun up there as well as try hard and suffer and things. It's kind of the only reason you do those routes is to have fun on them. So like, I like to, have fun up there. So we brought this inflatable shark, which was pretty sweet.
Bought the shark en route in Las Vegas for I think $8 or something.
Yeah, $8.99. Best $8.99 I've ever
We just saw it walking past the aisle. We're like, that's a bargain. We have to get that.
Is he still with us?
Yeah. He's at my dad's house in London. He's like a bit worse for weather, but I think he's going to pull through.
We patched him up at one point.
Yeah, he's going to pull through.
Did he stay inflated to the top?
No.
We inflated him multiple times.
To be honest, I think he was leaking before he even started, because we took him up and did the porch swing, rode him on the porch swing, and I think that was...
We rode him down the canyon in Zion as well.
Right, yeah. So we took him rafting in Zion too.
In the river.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So on that trip, you freed the Freerider.
Right, yeah.
And then you came back.
A couple times,
but you eventually did it, right? But without him.
Yeah. Oh, Jacob was supporting me the time I actually did it.
Oh, okay, cool.
So this was just in November. But yeah, that was actually my 4th time up that route.
So it's kind of a Freerider saga for Bronwyn.
Well, let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I supported Jacob on Freerider 4 years ago. Was that?
Yeah, so 4 years ago we climbed it as a 3 with myself, a team of 4, I guess. There was myself, Chris Bevins, who's another British climber, Bronwyn, and then the Shark.
And Chris and Jacob both were free climbing at all. Okay. And I was like, I'm coming along. This is fun. I like multi-day climbing adventures. Right. But it was just like so far out of what I was able to climb that I just kind of top roped some stuff. And I couldn't really haul either. I was like I wasn't a very helpful support team, really. And then a year and a half later.
Right, so in fall 2016.
Yeah. I started to have some ideas that I might be able to climb the pitches on Freerider now. And so I went up on a scoping mission with a friend, Sam Nightingale, and then came down. And then later that season, Alex Morris hangs out around Yosemite a lot.
She's on Yosa, she was.
Yeah. A lot of people around. If you spend time in Yosemite, you probably have met Alex Morris. The two of us teamed up, and we tried to both send Freerider at the end of that season. And we took 7 days, and it's this is actually kind of a funny story. We packed for 5 days, and then we got to the crux pitch of Freerider. It's right in the middle of the wall, kind of. And so we got there, and we tried it, and then decided that maybe if we spent a few days red pointing this pitch, we would be able to do it, or one of us might be able to, but we didn't have enough food for that or water. So then we took out Alex's phone. It said 1% battery, and we texted Jacob, who was down in the valley, that we needed more food and water.
Well, you texted me and Neil.
Yeah, texted right. Jacob and Niels, Alex's friend. And then her phone died, and then we were like, I think one of them will come and bring us supplies, right? They both got the message. It definitely sent. So then we just put the phone away. It was dead now. And we went back, rappelled back into the pitch and kept trying it. And then, we were right. They both showed up separately, individually over the next day, loaded us up with more food and water.
Yeah, so I wrapped in with a bunch of water and some pineapple and pies and
avocado and various
Oh, right on. Yeah, that's like ordering a pizza.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah, and Niels came in. They didn't actually communicate, the two of them. So
we met each other on the trail, both on a support mission.
Oh, really?
And realized are you going?
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
We both got the same text.
Oh, that's funny.
But then, so I think it was the next afternoon, Niels brought us supplies, and then that evening, Jacob came in, bringing us more supplies. And so then, Alex ended up sending the Teflon corner, the crux pitch, and I didn't manage to do I was trying the boulder, which is the other crux pitch. And then, we carried on to the top and ended up finishing it after 7 days. It was
So you spent 7 days on it, and you freed the whole route except for one move.
Yeah, I did everything except the ninja kick, if anyone has seen the Free Solo movie, where he throws his leg out to the wall and lands on it, kind of.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
It's a kilometer of climbing, and I didn't do
weird that
1
that's
foot.
You gotta go back.
Yeah, right.
To
it's
that.
So random. The rules are so random. It's oh, you didn't. Yeah, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
But that's what.
I hadn't.
Right. I mean, I get it. It's totally the rules.
Yeah, it's the rules, and it's why it's fun, right?
Right,
if it was easy, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be fun.
Who cares? But you care.
Yeah.
So you cared enough to come back.
Yeah. So then, a year later, was it
2 years later?
2 years later. Oh yeah. Yeah, 2 years later, I've now came back. It's okay, I've done a lot of bouldering. I think I can do that move now. I want to try again. And then Jacob supported me, and we went up in 5 days.
Yeah, so we spent 5 days on it in November, and this time around was much more casual.
With Alex, we both, this is with Alex Morris 2 years ago. We each, fell off 10 times maybe, and you repeat the pitch every time. Right. So she would fall off and then repeat it, and then I would fall off and repeat it, and then we'd get it. We'd move to the next pitch, and then one of us would fall. We were just falling all over the place, but we kept repeating. So we'd probably climbed it 1.5 times by the time we'd actually got to the top, and it was just this whole epic. We were both exhausted, we were crying at various points, just this big kind of emotional, physical week, I guess. But
then this November was much more chill, and it was really amazing on my part to to just be there belaying Bronwyn and just watching her like float these pitches.
Well,
and
I still had to try hard, but
packed.
It was easier. It was
we
like within
packed
my
for,
limit.
I guess, like 6 or 7 days up there, and expecting to probably spend 2 or 3 days on the boulder problem, and Bron just like fired it first try.
Oh, cool!
And so yeah, it was really it's been really amazing and like slightly scary, like watching Bronwyn's progression, like with that route, I guess, as like a milestone, like a marker kind of thing. Yeah, and we also on that we took these crazy inflatable portaledges up in November.
Oh,
which was
right,
so cool.
That cat just got in touch with me. What's
Grade
the name?
7.
Nathan Kukathas? Oh, grade 7.
Yeah, the grade 7. Right.
Yeah, so they make these like inflatable portaledges.
There's 3 packs.
So
Right.
yeah, we're continuing the inflatable theme.
yeah.
Nice.
We're the inflatable.
You were the perfect tester.
Sought us
yeah.
out.
And those things, they work.
They're sweet.
Yeah.
They're more comfortable than a regular portaledge.
Right.
I thought. Yeah, they're
like
sweet.
easier to set up, significantly lighter and more comfortable.
Yeah.
So,
Huh.
I mean,
And maybe if you were doing like a 20-day aid wall, it wouldn't be so sweet because it's like harder to cook on them, because they're
Right.
like a bit kind of like floppy.
Right.
But for like, if you're actually moving like every day, if you're hauling your stuff every day, that just the weight, they're so much lighter.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
Huh. Radical.
and we'd even like they set up really fast, so you would even like on a hanging belay in the middle of the day, we would sometimes
Yeah, you can
pull
just
one
like
out
whip
just
them
for
out
like
to
lunch,
stand on.
or to stand on to belay the person.
How do you inflate them?
With like an inflation bag.
Right.
Yeah.
Rad.
Yeah, so you like blow into a bag and then it's like a dry bag and you like
Right.
seal it up, inflate them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I it's like, it's kind of hard to imagine,
Yeah, right.
but yeah, it sounds cool. Where are they making them?
In Squamish.
In Squamish.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's funny because they, the D4 guys,
Yeah, right.
they just started making pep ledges not too
Right.
long
I
ago.
think that there's a huge amount of innovation that can still happen.
Well, that's what Ducey
with
said when I had him
portaledges,
on the
yeah.
show.
Right. But the thing is that not enough people like buy and use portaledges.
That's what I was getting
for there to be a bunch of money into optimizing the design.
right.
So basically, I think there's still a huge amount of improvement that can happen, and these pods are like inflatable ones are kind of one route that's pretty sweet for some things.
Yeah, so check 'em
specifically for like alpine climbing.
Right.
I think they can be really sweet.
You can put them in your backpack.
yeah, like you don't need to haul. You can like climb with one attached to you,
That's wild.
which you can't really do with a regular pod.
No. Yeah, and the
Imagine
D4
climbing
is lighter than the old ones.
Yeah,
But
you
it's
still
still
can't
heavy.
climb
As,
with
yeah,
it
it's
clipped to your
big and
harness.
heavy
Yeah,
and bulky, and
yeah,
that'd be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like trying to actually climb with it on your back or in your pack.
yeah.
Yeah, radical.
Yeah.
So let's get to some more recent adventures. This will be one of those shows because you guys have done so much cool stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Lotus Flower, which
Right.
Cool.
you just had a big trip up there that you threw in your past
Yep.
passion,
Yeah.
Bron, to do whitewater up there and float it in. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I guess this was 3 years ago, almost
2.5.
2.5 years ago. We whitewater canoed into the Cirque of the Unclimbables in northern Canada. Which was basically just pretty cool for me coming from a whitewater paddling background and then being totally obsessed with climbing recently, and then this obvious expedition came together where both of them, met.
Well, it started because we were looking through slides with Bron's parents, like at her house in Perth, and like old slides of them because Bron's parents met canoe tripping, and they'd done a bunch of canoe tripping together when they were much younger. And we were looking through these slides, and one of them came up, and it was Bron's dad standing with the Cirque behind him, and I was like,
Oh, wow.
wait a second.
Right. I know where that is.
I know that. That's the Lotus Flower Tower. What are you doing there? And then he mentioned that they'd paddled this river, the Little Nahanni, and then into the
South Nahanni.
into the South Nahanni River, and on the way they'd done a little hike up into the Cirque of the Unclimbables. And I was like, no way.
Interesting.
And so then the kind of the idea came around to do that trip, but then obviously combine it with some climbing up in the Cirque. And then I guess Bron's dad had run the river 3 times before because he actually guided it in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
And he kind of jokingly said, oh yeah, like I'd love to come along, but you guys have to get me up the tower. And so we were like, oh,
interesting.
okay. So we basically taught him how to Jumar in their backyard in Perth. And I think he'd done one multi-pitch before. Like, he came to visit us in Spain and climbed one sort of six-pitch sport route.
Yeah.
And then we taught him how to Jumar with a rope attached to a tree in Perth. And then we set off on this 30-day paddling, climbing expedition into the circuit.
There was like my dad, my brother, myself, Jacob, and two of my like childhood friends, and my dad's paddling buddy. So it's kind of like, my whole like family, extended family, essentially, was going on this big, 30-day river and climb.
Where do you get in the river, or how do you get to it?
You drive up to so it's like road to road. So we did a massive car shuttle. It's like basically like a 24-hour car shuttle or something to drive all the way around. So you go to Watson Lake,
right?
Which is kind of
because I've climbed in the Cirque,
right? Yeah, but
we went out of Watson, but we flew in out of the
Glacier Lake.
Yeah, well, and what's the lodge? The Inuit.
Oh, right.
Or is that what it's called? It's Warren
Kluani.
Yeah, Warren LaFlave's place.
Anyways, yeah.
So most climbers, I guess, fly in. So which is why it was a cool idea to kind of try and do the whole trip,
right?
Like road access to road access. So you drive up and you kind of go north of Watson Lake, and then you turn onto this dirt road, I guess, mining road called Nahani Range Road, and I think it's like 100 miles down there. And there's like an old tungsten mine that I'm kind of not sure. It's called tungsten. It's like a tiny little mine in there.
We don't know whether it's actually.
I'm not sure if it's
operating.
Still operating or not. Anyway, the road's still there, and you go all the way into flat lakes, and then you put in there, and that turns into the Little Nahani. And I think we were 6 days on the river to where we took out,
that's the more like intense section of river. Like that has the biggest rapids.
Yeah, so that was absolutely terrifying on my part because I'm not a canoeer at all.
Well, we did some practice.
We did a little bit of practice, and then I basically the way it works is we were in these tandem canoes, and Bronwyn's in the back steering, and I'm just in the front, and I just have to do what she tells me.
The tables are turning.
Yeah. Exactly. It was like
all good.
My turn.
It was like complete faith going down these like huge rapids in these canyons. Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying.
I just shouted Jacob to do
strokes.
different paddling strokes.
And so then we was 6 days down the river to where we took out, and then 2 days hiking up into the Cirque, which is the worst 2 days of my life. The hike was absolutely horrendous. Like the bugs were really, really bad, and our bags were insanely heavy.
I think we went up a kilometer and a half or something.
Yeah, so
you've obviously Fairy Meadows,
right? Up into Fairy Meadows.
See, we cheated.
Yeah.
Well, we went up and climbed Proboscis.
Right. Yeah.
And we had a chopper.
Oh, you dropped right into the meadow.
No, we didn't go to the meadow at all because
from the lake up is still only like a quarter of it. Like from the river to the lake is again like that was a whole day.
Yeah, well, and then going into Proboscis is a whole other thing. You go into the other side.
And we were looking at Proboscis from the top of Lotus Flower Tower. We were looking across at Proboscis, and I was like,
if I ever
come back here, I need to climb that.
We had the benefit of the guy that kind of put the trip together had been up there and had done a trip where he flew. He had him fly in and actually throw a bunch of supplies out at the Cirque, like onto the snow tongue that's at the bottom.
Huh.
Okay.
And then because he didn't have enough money for a chopper that trip, and then landed them at the lake,
right,
in the fixed wing. This all happened in the fixed wing, and then they hiked up there,
but without bags, really.
Yeah, but by the time they got up there, an avalanche had covered all their stuff.
Oh no!
And they basically came back down and were out of food. And they hiked up to Fairy Meadows, if I'm getting this all right. Kevin Daniels, he's been mentioned on the show before. I think there was a radio at Fairy Meadows.
Right, yeah, there's a sat phone in there.
So he got, this was pre-sat phone, but it was just an old ration. Get him on the radio and got them to fly in and rescue him.
Right.
But they were out of food for a few days.
Oh, wow.
And they found a few things, I guess, up at the Fairy Meadows too to eat, but...
Right.
And then he said they just sat
down. This is worrying because we have a cache right now.
Yeah.
We just the other day, we got all of our climbing rack and a bunch of food snowmobiled in under Mount Asgard.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so it's sitting there at the mercy of the bears.
Anyway, back to your story, and then we'll get to Asgard. We got a lot of stuff to do. We're almost... You back to your story. So you guys hiked up. On
so
the
we
most
hiked up,
miserable day.
and then we had 10 days packed of food worth to sustain the cirque. Because obviously, if you're just on a pure climbing trip, you'd try and go for longer than 10 days. But that was
we had to paddle all of our stuff in,
and then we had to hike it all up. So we basically ended up with 10 days in the cirque, and we had like one of those sat text devices, and we got my dad was looking at the weather forecast and sent us a thing saying, "Oh yeah, you guys should go now. Like the weather was going to get bad." So we basically we got up and we went straight away to climb the Lotus Flower Tower, and we were climbing as a team of 4. So it was me, Bronwyn's dad, and Bronwyn's friend from high school, Thor. And neither Thor or Jeff, Bronwyn's dad, had really climbed all that much before. And so I was climbing trailing 3 single ropes. and fixing 2 of them, and Jeff and Thor would just jog.
And then I would second the pitch, cleaning it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so for a while, on the first day, I was kind of simul climbing with Bronwyn on one rope and short fixing the other 2 for Jeff and Thor.
You're really good at rope management.
Some crazy tactics. But anyway, and then the weather turned out to be like really quite bad.
Yeah.
And so with the first day we got in a big rainstorm, and we got our tent fly out. We brought a tent to camp on the ledge. We got our tent fly out, this hanging belay, and we were kind of just hanging out under this tent fly in a rainstorm, being like, well,
probably like for an hour.
Guess we'll have to go
something.
down, yeah. And then that stopped, and we climbed up, and we got to this bivvy, and then we set the tent up. We brought like a little 3-man tent that fitted on the ledge. And then that night, I guess there was a bunch of snow, and the tent like collapsed.
We woke up like under a collapsed tent under snow.
Yeah, I woke up with like tent on my face and stuff. So it was like really not ideal weather. But then so then the next day there was a bunch more rain, but we kind of just kept going up, and I was kind of thinking that if I heard thunder, I would definitely bail, because the Lotus Flower Tower is kind of like a big lightning conductor. But I'd never heard thunder, and it was just kind of like on and off rain. I was like, oh, I guess we'll just keep going up. And then, so it was sweet. We did actually manage to get Bronwyn's dad to the top of the Lotus Flower
What's
Tower.
his name?
Jeff Hodgins.
So Jeff and Thor were totally down with this.
Yeah. Thor
Like, they
done
never-
a little bit.
Thor
of
has an
climbing.
amazing route.
Well, I'm just saying, like, through all this, like, rain and snow, they're just like,
They were
wow,
just like,
this is...
like, if you can get the ropes up, like, we'll follow you, kind of thing.
Yeah, they were concerned about me, like, leading the pitches, and like, I mean, I was.
Were you concerned about you leading
I was
the
just
pitches?
pulling on the cams. And,
Okay.
like, it split her up there. Like, I
Right.
mean, it was super. It was fun. It wasn't really a problem. I was just concerned about the fact that they were probably really cold, and
my dad was like 54.
yeah, and he's not a climber at all.
Not a climber, yeah.
That's cool. That's
So
cool.
yeah, it
that
was
they
really
just, like,
special. I don't think your average 54-year-old man non-climber could really get up the Lotus Flower Tower. So I think it was pretty.
Yeah, that's
amazing
awesome.
that-
Yeah, but he sounds like no slouch.
Yeah,
No.
he's done
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of like outdoor adventures.
Right. If he can just splash around in Arctic cold water all the time,
Right,
a little
yeah.
rain, like,
Yeah,
big deal,
no big
you
deal.
know?
Yeah.
Because that sounds miserable to me. Getting splashed by, like, water that was ice, like, 4 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah. Well, that's a cool trip.
Yeah,
I mean-
yeah.
And then it was still 2 weeks of paddling out from there.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so then we hiked back down to the river, and we stashed our boats and stuff, and then it was 2 weeks paddling to get out.
Still like whitewater.
So I think if you were purely a climber, you might not be so into the trip, because it was
Right.
kind of like 20 days of paddling for 10 days of climbing.
Or 10 days in the climbing area, so it was less than that actually climbing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But as a whole combined trip, it was like a really cool, like
Yeah, that's super awesome.
self-contained adventure, and it gave me a good feeling for like how remote the cirque actually is. Like to really travel overland in there and out.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Well, I mean, if you're sitting on a ledge and being collapsed by snow, you probably wake up thinking like, oh shit, we're on our own out here right now. This is this is pretty serious.
Yeah.
Despite being able to text or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And so we had a deck of cards up there, and we were like in the tent in the rain playing euchre.
Right on.
It felt like a weird like spin on like a family
there's
camping
my dad.
trip.
And,
Yeah, it's like Bron and her dad like sitting in a tent in the rain.
Got a little
It's
s'mores
just-
going
Yeah,
on
right.
and
It just
stuff.
happened to be like halfway up the Lotus Flower.
That's radical. Yeah, we didn't bring a radio, and we kind of regretted it.
Right. Yeah.
It was kind of like everybody, we had talked about it on the way up there, and then nobody really pulled the trigger because you could get one from Warren.
Right.
At that time, it was still pre-sat phone, and And we got there, and the helicopter took off, and a couple days later, we were like, oh, yeah, that's right, we don't have a radio.
Yeah.
Like, it actually really came clear when we were bouldering, because we had a lot of rain, too, so we were, like, bouldering between rainstorms, no pads.
Right.
And my buddy Chris, like, cratered and really bruised his leg.
Right. I've heard of so many climbers having bouldering accidents on expeditions.
Well, and this, after that, everybody was like, if you just broke your leg...
Yeah.
If you had just broke your leg, we would be fucked.
No, I find with a lot of people that aren't into the kind of like sat text devices and stuff, because, it
takes away from
the commitment. Yeah,
right.
but I prefer to have it and just not turn it on.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like that's more acceptable for me.
Yeah. I just did it on our other podcast, the Run Out. We talked a little bit about those ethics of
right.
It's like almost...
Because for sure it's less committing if you've got one.
Well, no, but we were talking about how right now, since everybody expects to hear from you,
right?
If they don't, it's almost like unethical to not bring one,
right?
Because they're going to start looking for you whether you like it or not,
right?
And so, to avoid all this like crazy stuff that goes on with these rescues now with GoFundMe and all these different things, like it seems like everybody needs to be a little bit more like... This is
for other people's sake.
Yeah, for other people's sake.
And if you just had a spot that just gave you GPS,
it's just a modern thing, and it sucks. And you want to go out there and disappear, but you can't anymore. It's just like
you're on grid no matter where you go.
Yeah. So, but that does sound like a really really cool trip, and I like appreciate the fact that you guys, just that like, well, it wasn't really a climbing trip, but but I mean a hell of an adventure.
Yeah, and it was really nice to have like a huge, really challenging objective that like wasn't necessarily like a personal climbing one. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to climb this next level route. It was like, oh, we're going to try and get Bron's
Well, it sounded like it pushed you.
It was really challenging. Yeah. It was exhausting and scary and all of those things, but it was like kind of to do with someone else's experience as well, which was kind of cool.
Well, before we run out of time, because this has been so fun. I mean, you guys have such fun, awesome adventures. Like, it's like the soul of climbing in here, for me anyway. But let's talk. You just mentioned it right before we got started, and I had totally forgotten about it. But you guys went down and climbed. What's it called?
El Gavilan.
Yeah, you guys went down and climbed El Gavilan.
Yeah,
well, that wasn't with me.
Right. So
this is just
Jake? This was just me. This was in January. So Bronwyn actually had a bouldering accident.
Oh,
everyone hurts themselves bouldering.
Yeah, too dangerous. Don't do it.
Yeah, no.
Go on expeditions
What'd you
instead.
do?
I dislocated my elbow in December.
Jeez.
It was
just in December.
Yeah, it's like still recovering.
No, I
bit.
think it'll.
But,
wow.
Yeah, like landed on it. Outstretched and it bent backwards like the wrong direction. You don't want you're making cringing noises.
I'm cringing because I almost did. I hyperextended mine pretty hard. Not quite to dislocation, but it took me a long time to have it not hurt.
Yeah,
and
it's still like in the kind of hurting a bit and sort of stiff phase.
It's why I hate doing hard moves on the top of the bouldering wall now.
Right, yeah. I'm going to be much more scared of indoor bouldering after watching what happened to Bron.
So you missed out on this one.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I stayed at home doing physio exercises.
El Gavilan.
Right, so this is...
Wait, let me just... Well, you can do it.
No, you do it.
No, you do it.
So I guess I first heard about El Gavilan on the Enormocast, and it was... I think it's like episode 19 or 20 or something. It's really
super early.
Yeah,
well, Jeff Jackson.
Right, so it's the Jeff Jackson Enormocast, and he tells this... like really really cool story. He's like a great storyteller.
He's the best. There's nobody better.
Yeah, and so he tells this story about this wall in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, and like you have to drive on this dirt road until you reach the town of Los Remotos, and then you keep going to the end of the road, and then there's like local farmers out there, and they talk about shape-shifting horse people that are horse by day and human by night. And some of them use their powers for good, and some of them use their powers for evil. So anyway, and I think there's a whole bunch of peyote out there in the desert too. Which
that's
maybe the root of all the stories.
Sure.
So anyway, I heard that like 5 years ago. Then I emailed Jeff Jackson, I think this was in like 2012, being like, dude, I just listened to your Enormocast interview. I want to go climb your route. And he got back to me and was super friendly, gave me a bunch of beater and sent me some photos. And then the trip never ended up happening.
I think you got in touch with me.
Right.
Yeah, and then I was like, just email Jeff. I'm sure he'll tell you about it.
Right. Quite possibly.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, so then that trip never ended up happening, and I didn't go down then, and I kind of forgot about it until this winter. My buddy Tony was like, "Oh, you should come join me out in Mexico," and I was like, "Wait a second!" And I dug up this old email from Jeff Jackson from like 5 years ago, and I got psyched to go in and climb El Gavilan, and so then that first night out in the desert, we got dropped off in the past Los Remotos.
So this is with you and Tony.
This was me and Tony, yeah. And we were kind of like a little bit spooked, like, are the Naguales going to show up? Like, what's going to happen? And then as soon as the car drove away, and then it's kind of spooky out there. There's kind of like some ranches and stuff, and you don't know like who's around. And as soon as our ride in drove away, we heard these like gunshots, and we were like, oh shit.
That's worse than Naguales.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And we were like, oh my god, like this place is kind of spooky. But anyway, we went and camped in these boulders. We kind of hiked into this little boulder field, and then that night at like midnight, Tony came and like shook my tent and was like, dude, wake up. You got to come see this. I was like, what is it? Is it the Naguales? And then I came outside and it was the super blood moon. It was the wolf moon. So it was amazing to be out there in the middle of the desert with like zero light pollution and this, like a full lunar eclipse, like a super blood wolf moon or whatever. So we just sat and watched that for like 2 hours. It was super cool. And then, so then we repeated Jeff Jackson's route, which unfortunately now has really old bolts, which are quite scary. We were like climbing past the belay and including like the next bolt of the pitch in the belay, like equalized and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure they weren't using the most modern, awesome gear.
So if someone wanted to rebolt that would be
How many pitches is it?
It's like 8 pitches. Yeah, but it's crazy steep. It's like 45 degrees overhanging for like a good chunk of the middle of the wall and like toothers and stuff. Yeah, it's really wild. And then we got psyched and we ended up going back in there like a couple weeks later, and we did a new route on like a little bit further left on the wall.
Okay, yeah. Going ground up with the drill. Like I think we had 12 bolts. We've kind of done this style a bit, like climbing around Canada and in BC, where like you kind of climb until you get scared and then you like hang on a crimp and drill a bolt. That was good fun. Right on. Yeah. So is that route worth repeating?
It got repeated. We didn't send it. Okay. Because we were just. Well, I guess we didn't send it for whatever reason, and then we came back to camp and told my buddy Drew Marshall about it, and he went in there and freed it.
Like the next week.
The next week, yeah. But I mean, it's adventurous.
Okay.
It's very adventurous.
Right on.
It's a great adventure, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as like a 5-star route.
What about Jeff's route?
Jeff's route is a 5-star route.
Okay,
it's just
cool.
that the bolts are a little bit
right.
spooky.
They're getting old. Yeah. They need to be replaced. Yeah. How many bolts on it, you think? Someone gets stoked.
I was thinking about this. It's probably like let's say like 12 bolts a pitch.
Right.
8 pitches.
Okay. It's like 100 bolts or so.
Sure. You're the mathematician.
Right. Mathematician. I'm terrible at mental arithmetic.
Infinity bolts. Yeah. There's infinity bolts.
No, I'm actually really bad at mental arithmetic. Every time someone finds out I'm a mathematician, they're like, "Oh, what's 57 times like 69?" And I'm like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. What's your calculators?
What's one fist in your eye add up to?
Anyway, 100 bolts, 120 bolts.
Yeah,
like that.
Cool. No, I mean it's a neat formation, like out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it looks like.
And you didn't have any problems with the gunshots out. You just heard.
No. Yeah, we never saw anyone. Yeah. It's like pretty remote out there. I think sound travels a long way. It's probably like 10 miles away.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the whole gunshot. Mexico can put you on edge.
Right.
So.
We did set our camp up like on the one side of the side of the boulder that was away from like where anyone could see us.
I know that feeling because we camped at the base of El Gigante,
right?
And there's a weed field or a poppy field down there.
I wanted to go in there. I'll go in there.
Yeah, you should go and do that thing. But it was the same feeling of like we're probably okay. Everybody says we're gonna be okay, but we are down here next to a poppy field with a dude with a gun over there. So it just keeps you on edge. But Mexico's all right though. All right, so you guys, let's finish up with this. The future. Going to the future. So you just let slip that you just had a big cache put at Mount Asgard up in Baffin?
Yeah. So I guess this is maybe paddle climb sequel to the Nahanni. So our plan is to paddle and hike up into Mount Asgard, and then climb up there for a month, and then paddle the Whitewater River that runs down the valley, back down to Pangertung, the Inuit town there.
It's kind of committing, shipping your entire climbing rack to the middle of nowhere. It's like we really have to go in and get it now.
Right.
And we have to, so the reason it ships so early is because the sea ice is all still in the winter. So in order to get the shipment put up close to Asgard, we had to send it while it was still all frozen. So we had to commit sort of quite far in advance. I mean, we shipped it like a month ago.
Right. So what do you got left? Like some draws and a...
Oh, yeah. So a buddy of ours in Squamish lent us his entire rack.
Because yours is up there.
And it's actually way better than our rack. Our rack is like all janky and like mismatched, and he's got this random
So it's sitting up there on the snow.
Yeah, under a tarp.
Yeah.
And it's just gear, or is there food?
There's food.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're in big barrels, so it doesn't get molested by animales.
Hopefully
There's
not.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And
the polar bears generally stay more on the coast, but
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we
So-
did our best to
Global
kind of
warming and
seal it
stuff.
up and
Right.
like cut down on smells.
Did you get any
stuff.
sort of advice from the folks up
the
there on
park.
how to deal with it?
We've
Okay.
spoken to people who've been
Because that's
up there.
pretty wild. I
Some
mean,
buddies have been
you
up
go in there and it's not there.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be in this position, right? Like where,
Right.
where
But then we'll have a sat phone.
Okay.
but
yeah,
no,
but-
but I
guess,
wouldn't want to
but-
use it like like that's not a situation.
It's not like
where you
on
wanna use
Freerider where you got
it. Right.
got a bunch of stuff delivered.
No, but I guess we'll hike in with a little bit of
People
extra
throwing
food.
Skittles
and
at
if,
you out
if,
of a
if for whatever
helicopter.
reason the cache is like destroyed, we'll just turn right around and hike out again.
Yeah. So you'll have
We'll have a couple days.
You'll just ruin
contingency.
your trip.
Yeah, right. But
Yeah.
So how do you get to the headwaters of where you're putting in?
we're paddling from Pangertung.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll fly to Baffin Island and then
Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll try to. We'll see. If we get to Pangertung and there's like just terrible conditions. Or whatever,
really
Right.
stormy. It's like
We might
a
have to make
30
other
kilometer sea fjord from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 30 kilometers, 2 kilometers wide. So which in most, like in good weather, should be fine to paddle.
So you're going to be ocean paddling
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
In these pack rafts.
in the pack
We've got the pack raft in our van right now.
Everybody's
We're gonna
super
test it
stoked
out
on
next
these.
week.
Everybody's
No, we're
super
gonna
stoked
test it
on
well,
these pack
tomorrow.
rafts.
We're gonna test
in
it.
a couple of days.
In a
yeah.
couple of days. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're
But
gonna,
then there's also a Whitewater River, like at the end of the trip.
all right. So you are going into the ocean on these pack rafts.
Right.
I mean, you're going to be in fjords, but
Yeah.
and then you get out of there, you hike in,
Yeah.
you climb for 30 days,
We've
Thereabouts.
got about 4 weeks in there. Yeah.
and then you're going to get in boats
And paddle the river.
This is all the plan. Like this
and paddle out.
This
But it
hasn't
hasn't
happened
happened
all your
yet.
stuff.
So this is
Yeah, but it's
dream.
got to happen because your shit's up
We
there.
have to go get our stuff. We haven't
How
committed
you
to
do it,
anything
right.
else. Yeah, right. So we have to go get our stuff somehow, and that is the plan. Yeah.
So you have to wait. I mean, the cool thing is that you're going to be there when it's nicer weather.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, we're
hopefully.
going in the hottest,
because
July.
it's,
The
normally
hottest
you got to
month.
go in there to climb on the ice.
Oh no! So Mount Asgard is not right on the sea.
Oh, that's
so
right, that's right.
You can hike in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the park in the mainland more.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
So most people take a boat up the fjord and then hike.
right,
Hike
and
in.
you're just paddling.
Yeah,
and
and then
it's up-
also
But the main thing is we're going with Bron's high school friend Thor.
Okay, so
And
Thor's back
Thor
on
is
the team.
Back, Thor's back on the team, and
Nice.
the main objective is to climb Mount Thor with Thor. Like it's just like it's such an obvious objective.
Duh.
Yeah.
so Mount Asgard's secondary.
Has it been proved his
Yeah, he has actually.
climbing?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's doing well.
He's been doing a lot, so it's been 3 years since the last
Okay.
trip.
Yeah.
And actually, so we're going as a 4. Thor and Zach were both on the Lotus
Okay.
Flower Tower
They're
trip.
both just Bron's friends
And
from
they're-
high school.
Yeah, I've known them. I met them in like children's 3-year-old playgroup.
Really?
then-
And they've since, in the last 3 years, both of them have done a lot of climbing, and they're excited to go on this climbing trip at holding their own on the climbing end this time.
And we also just we know we work well as a team. Like we have a good thing going on as like a group dynamic.
Sure.
Yeah,
Wow, that's cool.
it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you got Thor. No big. You're
We're good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he lives up to his name too. Like
Does
he
he?
can carry like all of our shit.
We we were joking the other trip, like on the Lotus Flower Tower, that we had like those with the paddling skills and those with the climbing skills, and then Thor was the pack mule.
Right.
That's huge.
You're good at other parts too, Thor, if you listen to this.
So how big a packs will you have, you think, on the walk into Asgard?
Hopefully quite light, because all our stuff's in there.
Right.
But we're still going to have these rafts.
We'll still have the pack rafts.
Yeah.
And our camping stuff and cooking stuff, and probably 5 days of food.
Right.
Yeah, so hopefully not insane.
4 days maybe.
They'll be heavy, but not insane.
Yeah.
Right.
Is the plan.
Right. And what's your bug plan?
Head nets.
Yeah.
Head nets and try not to panic.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jacob's kind of a wimp with bugs.
Yeah, I'm totally a wimp with bugs. I can't handle that.
Yeah.
You know where you get your head net and you have to put your dinner inside the head
I've
net?
never actually been anywhere that I needed a head net.
Oh.
I just see it on movies and stuff and
You're
documentaries, and I'm like,
You're
ugh.
lucky.
Yeah, like Grizzly Man.
I've been on a lot of canoe trips with a lot of bugs.
Yeah, I mean, we had bugs, but we never went far as nets. You know, just like, that stuff that melts paint, DEET, just like 100% DEET.
That sounds scary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
bugs.
feel like 30% deep. I think, yeah.
I know, but look at my skin; it's still in really good shape.
Nice and
No,
fat.
you get the full bug jackets, and then you take your arms out of the sleeves, and then bring your cooking, like your plate of food inside the jacket, and then eat inside with like everything cinched around you. Like,
Jesus. When you guys get up to Asgard, though, is it because we actually when we were in Proboscis, we were up high enough out of the tundra to not have any
We
bugs.
should be
I feel
around
like once
Asgard.
we're
So
up
it's just
on
the walk in.
Yeah.
Once we're on the glacier, I
be
feel like
grim.
it's not going to be as
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah,
Cool.
for sure.
Yeah, because I saw some movie where, like the Pooh brothers and
Oh, yeah.
Jacopo and those guys went up to Siberia, and like the whole
Just got
movie was
eaten
just
alive.
it looked miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, it can just ruin a trip,
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure.
Those things are bastard.
All right, well, this has been so fun. I mean, we're it's late night now. You guys, I wanted to ask you about. I actually kind of want to open with this. That 2 days ago you did Liquid Sky.
Yesterday.
Yesterday you did Liquid Sky.
I
down
followed
in
Bronwyn
Creek.
through Liquid Sky, and it was extremely
I
traumatic.
thought it was fine. It's just a spacious chimney.
How was it?
I did actually fit quite easily through, and Jacob got a little.
Yeah, but what
stuck.
about the climbing up to there? I've always been curious about how scary that is.
I mean, we borrowed one of the new Valley Giants. What's it called?
It's called like a Merlin or something.
Merlin, yeah, and that just protected the entire thing. I shuffled that up the whole
okay.
off with, and I shuffled that up the whole squeeze. So like I basically was on a top
But
rope.
Bron just squeezed right through and was like, "Oh, it's not so bad. It's kind of a bit easier than the Harding slot." And I was like, "Okay, I fit through the Harding slot." And then I like experienced the full range of emotions. I was in there for probably like an hour, and I like didn't believe I was going to fit. I was like, Bron, like I actually just don't think I fit. And I have a lot of excuses. I think I have a thicker harness than Bron.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a thick harness, so I think that was the problem. But anyway, yeah.
and you like chocolate more than
and
I
like
do.
it's really bad when you exert maximum energy and you don't get any movement at all.
Or you go down.
And then
Yeah,
you
right.
slide down
Right.
a bit. Yeah, right.
yeah.
So I ended up having to go like kind of diagonal
Yeah.
and then get like a little like hip wobble.
No,
going on.
not even like moving diagonal. Like his whole body went diagonal, so
Yeah.
like his feet came upwards and his head went downwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you guys are actually sort of mirroring the First Ascent.
Right.
Because
Well, Bron just
well,
squeezed
Chip
that through.
Chase is a lot skinnier than Jeff. Because Jeff's a big dude. Aki's a big dude.
Right.
And he had the exact same experience where Chip just like zing piled up through there, and then he got fully stuck, and he said he had to climb like sideways,
Yeah.
where his body was sideways.
Yeah.
That's
and
what
went
Jacob
out.
did.
That's
yeah.
what I had to do.
Yeah, and he said he just found like a
Yeah, you just gotta
secret
find the
passage
path. Yeah.
that was
And
like
you,
that's
you can't
whatever.
see it because
Right.
it all looks kind of similar. You
Right.
just got to feel it out.
I was
Yeah.
wondering if I kind of had the cam, so I could move it around and see like where it was more tipped out than other spots a little bit. I don't know.
Oh, there's a clever. Well, see that whole camp thing that changes the game.
Yeah, so I mean, it just like wasn't scary at all. Like I had a cam above
It
my
looked
head
pretty
basically
scary
the
to
whole
me. I
time.
don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome
But,
that you
yeah.
guys did
But yeah,
that.
so we kind of epic yesterday. We also like just totally botched the approach and ended up basically hiking from Super Bowl campground, which
So
is
just
like,
a really long day of hiking.
yeah, huge round trip.
Well, if you don't have 4-wheel drive.
Apparently, there's a new way in or something.
Oh,
but
from the other side.
We didn't know about it.
I think it is
we
from the
just
other
hiked
side.
from Super Bowl, and it sucked.
Yeah, that's the way you do it.
Yeah. Whatever.
It was a long day.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was nice. We were on top. I spent so long in there that we were like on top for sunset, which was kind of nice.
And there's no one else on the tower, so had it to ourselves.
Yeah. So basically, the upshot is you should all definitely go and climb Liquid Sky.
But maybe measure your waist and then compare to Jacob's waist.
It's a classic. You'll love it.
No,
it was really cool. It was really cool.
I mean, that's cool that you can get a cam that'll get you up that thing, because that's always intimidated me more than the upper part was.
Also, you can lay back most of that lower off with, and it's not that bad.
Yeah, because I tried it. I tried to lead it 4 years ago and backed off of that off width before I even got to the roof because I didn't have a cam that fitted in it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to climb off width.
That's kind of the story that goes with that, where everybody's like, I never even made it up there
to the chimney.
It was super scary. Yeah.
And so if you have one of these newfangled massive cams, you can slide it, which helps.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Well, cool. Thanks a lot for sitting down. I'm really excited you guys made it happen. It's fun to listen to the adventures and just how much sort of fun and psych that you guys go into this with. And I'm pretty stoked that you found each other. Don't you think?
We both paused.
You both paused. I guess it's all right. No, it's just cool. It's like
it gets cheesy. You try to avoid the cheesy. You started with mentioning some cheesy relationship power couple article, and then we moved away from that.
I know we moved away from that, but it's just cool.
It's amazing. It's amazing to have found someone like that. It works really, really well, both as like a life partner and a climbing partner.
Right.
I think that's like quite a rare combination.
Yes, it is.
And like those two are like definitely don't come together. Like a lot of the time you have one without the other, and it just so happens that for us it
like both work
really well. We
and like
really
one complements the other.
Yeah, we work really well together as climbing partners and as like romantic partners.
Well,
which is quite amazing,
right?
Really
and it's cool that you guys are like you. I think you said at some point, it was no longer you were teaching her how to climb. You guys were climbing
right.
together.
Bron took me up Liquid Sky yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean,
it was not. It was. We weren't even climbing it together.
You guys are in the same realm together.
You just didn't fit.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly, but definitely like in the same realm, which is also really rare.
Yeah.
It's super cool. It's super cool. So I'm like, I noticed your blog's out of date. Yours is up to date a little bit.
My one post, I've done one.
Yeah, but no one reads blogs anymore. I do like the Facebook and the Instagram.
All
the stories.
I think anybody who's interested
in the YouTube channel maybe is where the funny videos of.
There's a YouTube channel. There's some videos of.
Under whose name?
Jacob.
Mine, yeah. Okay. Jacob.
Oh, it's a little out of date as well right now, but we're actu're working on a couple.
So
of
that Nahani film, which was that Nahani trip, which the Circle of the Unclimbable trip, which was now 2 years ago. We're still editing the film.
Okay,
it will come out soon.
It's gonna be good.
It's like
better
the
be
Dawn
good.
Wall, like 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah. Well, it's just been slow. It's just such a big.
Also, we just climb a lot.
Yeah.
We don't really like sitting at computers, but we.
It's almost there.
It is almost there. Yeah. It's gonna be good.
Okay, cool. Well, follow these guys on Facebook. Thank you so much for sitting down. I look forward to hearing about how this Asgard thing goes, and hopefully all that stuff's just sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
It's great.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening. You want to go climbing with those guys, don't you? I mean, seriously, who has more fun than they do? And what we really didn't get into is just how good they are. Jacob's climbed 8C as a sport climber. He's freed El Nino and El Cap, and Bronwyn's right behind him. So not just fun and willing to do anything, but also really good at it. Okay, folks, there is a rumor going around, being whispered on the wind, that the Enormocast entourage is returning to the International Climbers Festival in Lander. We were not there last year. We've been there for many, many years before that. It's a great place to hang out, have some fun, meet folks that listen to the show. So we're probably going back this year, not 100%, but we're like in the 80s, 80 percentile. So if you're thinking about going up there, it's a super fun time, and check it all out at climbersfestival.org. might be going this year. Okay, everybody, have fun out there. But that also means being safe out there, because your fun will come crashing to an end if you screw up. So pay attention, and of course, check your knot.
Tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end. People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a one-boy, cuddly toy, my up, my down, my pride and joy. The teachers told me that's where it's at. So